you don't mind, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little about your farm business?
I'm Rob Harrison. I live up in Central Virginia, Fluvanna County. I graduated from Virginia Tech in 1980 in dairy science, and I got into beef farming shortly thereafter. And I've got a Angus-based, black Angus-based cow-calf operation, and raise the cattle for a natural beef program. By that, we don't feed any non-therapeutic antibiotics, and also we don't use any implants. And I've been breeding artificially for 25 years, and since they've come out with carcass data, I've been in carcass genetics. I've been breeding for high degree of marbling, low back fat, and those kind of things.
What do you hope to gain from direct sales?
I do. I was I had off-farm income for years, and that job was in sales, so I kind of missed that aspect of it. So that was part of it, and plus, over the years, I enjoyed the beef that I was producing myself, and with the market being what it is, I thought it'd be a good time to start direct selling some of the beef that I produce.
What's the easiest way you found to connect or network with your buyers?
I think, it's interesting. The buyers now are more educated, or want to be more educated about where their food comes from. And the fact that my background is actually in raising the cattle and the beef, that I'm able to give them a unique perspective and be able to explain things to them about how it's actually produced and how the cattle are fed and bred and raised and that kind of thing. So I think that offers them a little bit of an educational aspect, and a lot of them are like the fact that I actually raised the cattle. And so usually when I go in to see someone for the first time and introduce myself as someone who raises and sells natural beef, they're generally ready to hear me tell about it. Whether it works for them or not is determined later, but most of the time I get a pretty good reception.
Please describe the marketing strategies that you use to establish buyer relationships.
Well, first of all, before I got into it, or before someone gets into this, I think you need to realize that in this country we do an incredible job of producing and distributing food, probably the best in the history of the world, and you're competing against that. So in order to be successful, you have to set yourself up to compete. You can't really compete by price, so you have to compete by the story that you can tell, and in my opinion, the product quality. If in my case, if the beef's not as good as anything they've ever eaten, they're not going to pay twice to 3 times for it what they can get from a mainstream supplier for.
So please explain the steps in your process for selling direct to restaurants.
The sales, what I will do is, there are a couple ways I'll do it. I'll either go online and look at the restaurant and look at their menu, or I'll drop by and look at a menu on the wall if I'm in the area. But generally I try to find a restaurant that has a price point that will support what I'm selling. So I can't sell to lower price restaurants because they can't make money if they buy from me. So I have to determine, and a lot of times it's determined after I meet them and when I'm in conversation, but I have to be able to, before I go in, they have to have a way to make a profit buying what I'm selling at the price I have to get. Mm-hmm. So that kind of narrows down the number of restaurants quite a bit. And then the other part of that, the restaurant has to be large enough for you to be able to make it worth going by there. And that's the part that I'm still kind of playing with, because some restaurants may start buying in a small way but then build later, or in that industry you have a lot of movement as far as chefs going from restaurant to restaurant, or owners owning 2 or 3. So sometimes just getting your name out is the way to start.
What are the different jobs and roles in the selling process?
The one thing I've got to recognize quickly is that I'm as much of a distributor, as a food distributor, as I am a seller. And the thing that you've really got to be aware of is the cost of distribution, because a lot of those costs aren't things you write a check for. It's your time. It's running up and down the road. It's the lack of efficiency that I have versus mainstream suppliers. So I've got to look at that as part of the process. I get a lot of calls from people say, hey, we want to buy your beef, but they may be 3 hours away and want to buy 20 pounds of beef. So, hey, maybe later.
Yeah.
Can't do it today. So that's a consideration, and that's one of the things that you think about in your process, how easy it is to get in and out of. I mean, you've got to look at it not just from the beef standpoint, but from the logistics standpoint as well.
So when you're selling directly to restaurants, what food and safety regulations do you follow?
Well, first of all, with beef that I've got, temperature is a major issue. You've got to make sure that you maintain temperature all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And really any foods you've got to remember that someone's eating it. So the fact that I'm farming also, I always make sure that I'm, wash my hands, change clothes, all the basic things that you think about. And it's really is a separate job. You can't look at it as, hey, this is part of my farming operation, because I think you have to have it and treat it as a totally separate enterprise, both from the standpoint of like you said, the cleanliness and those kind of things, but also the time management part of it.
Are there any production differences for direct sale products versus what you may have done before?
I was selling the natural product for it. I used sell my beef to Rosetta, and to qualify for that, in our particular protocol, it's that all of the cattle have to be Angus sired, no growth promotants or hormones added, and no subtherapeutic antibiotics in the feed. And it costs a little more to produce cattle that way than it does for the mainstream cattle market, but I get a little bit of a premium for that, and try to keep records of what all I do. And because of the way we know that in my case, all these steers are going to go to beef to somebody's table, and they're going to be paying the premium for it, I go back and I've been breeding for, or using genetics that enable these cattle to offer better beef. Mm-hmm. And so that's the things that I do differently.
Please describe your positive experiences with direct sales.
I think the fact that I know the cattle and know that part of it, and that's where my background is, I think that really helps me with meeting the customers, whether it be an owner or chef or whatever. And it's pretty positive because they get excited about what they're doing, and I'm kind of excited about what I'm doing, and you're all kind of talking about producing food and what can we do for this, and